All right, evening everyone. You're all very welcome to tonight's session in the LGFA Player Development Series. So, if anybody happens to have any issues throughout tonight's session, we advise that you that you leave the webinar and just join back in. That's usually the easiest way to sort out any audio or technical issues. As mentioned already, the Q&A function is there throughout. The chat function is also there as well. So feel free to put any questions, any comments in throughout, and there'll be different bits and pieces as well that you can get engaged with without tonight's session. So um, I suppose tonight's session is focusing on honing my individual skills and a little bit around how you can do that in both in the season and probably in the off season as well, which I'm sure maybe some players are kind of at that stage of the season or else getting towards pre-season at this time. So my name is Ailish Ward. I am the head of player development with the LGFA, and I'm joined by Garode Balfrey, who is our games development officer from Munster. So Garode, do you want to come off there and just say hello to everybody?
Yeah, good evening, everyone. Yeah, very excited about this evening's webinar, and it's going to be good. We're covering tips and things you can do either individually on your own outside of training, as also as an addition to training. So we'll go through different aspects again this evening. So I'm looking forward to that.
Brilliant, thanks, Garode. So in terms of tonight's session, what we're going to cover is, firstly, we're going to look at the approach to practice in relation to individual skills. And within that, I've noted that there's a lot of coaches as well on tonight's session. We're going to look a little bit at technical models. So some coaches, no doubt, will be familiar with this, but players, I would imagine, will be less familiar. Then we're going to get right into, I suppose, the meat of the session, which is looking at the key skills. So the key skills that we've just selected, which have kind of been either things that we tend to get questions on or things that we tend to be the most popular skills that people want to practice are there. So we look at kicking or shooting, hand passing, soloing, tackling, a bit on goalkeeping, and then we'll also look at the high catch. And for each of those, we look, I suppose, a little bit around the technical model and what we look for in best practice, and then some practical ideas for each of those in terms of how we can practice that. We'll then look at some practical tips that we can apply, and again, the stepper model. So for anybody, say coaches may be familiar with that already, but again, for players, that might be less so. And then we move it on to questions and answers towards the end. So there will be a chance to ask questions, obviously, throughout, and we'll try and pick those up if we can. But there'll be lots of times for questions at the end, and we encourage you to get involved as much as possible. So in terms of the approach to individual skills practice, I suppose, firstly, and Garode kind of already has touched upon this, is making the time to practice and actually designating a bit of time in terms of our individual technical skills, whether it's in the off season, pre-season, or when we're in, I suppose, the heat of battle and we're getting towards league and championship time and training and matches are coming thick and fast. It can be difficult to actually, I suppose, firstly take the time and make the time to focus on individual skills practice. And what we tend to find is that players, I know I'm kind of guilty of this myself, often we set loads of time aside, we often find that our time, or we dedicate our time to focusing on our skills or practicing our skills, can be when we're at collective training. But when we do things individually outside of that, we tend to work on more so strength and conditioning, or maybe speed, aerobic fitness, those sorts of time, or those sorts of bits and pieces. So actually making the time to practice and making that decision can be really important, because once you do it, you can get great benefit from it. And creating a plan when practicing, I suppose for individuals, that can include or should include the key skills that you want to focus on. So actually saying, right, I really want to focus on improving my shooting, for example. How are you going to do that? Look at the drills and the methods that you can implement to practice these skills. Look at the individual skill components, the head, hands, feet, which we'll go through in a little minute. And then also set individual targets and goals, both short term and long term. So in terms of your practice, your individual goal, you might go down. I nearly always default to shooting because in my life as a forward. So that's usually my favorite thing to do. But if I go down to the pitch and I say I'm going to kick 50 balls, I might say, right, my target is that I want to reach a minimum of 40 points. Or on the longer term, then I might say, right, actually, my target is that I want to, in terms of my practice, is that I want to practice that week on week, and I want to see that percentage rise over time. A key thing as well, in terms of keeping it fresh and keeping it interesting, is getting others involved and trying to make your session as fun, as enjoyable as possible. So when you're taking the time to practice your individual skills, we don't want this to be a chore. We want this to be something that's fun, and we want it to be something that you enjoy. So there's various different methods which we'll touch upon throughout tonight, that you can kind of implement, and little tips and tricks, and in order to make it kind of as enjoyable and keep the excitement fresh. So our technical model, which we've mentioned before, and as I said, anybody from a coaching background might be more familiar. When we're practicing any of our individual skills, what we want to look at is our head, hands, feet in terms of what we should be looking for. So there's an example on the right-hand side there from one of our skills cards. So I've just picked the pickup from this, but you can easily see from this what we're looking for from both our head, hands, and our feet. So when we're looking at our head for any of the key skills, where is our head? Should it be up? Should it be down? What about the eyes? Where are our eyes looking? Are our eyes looking at the ball? Are our eyes looking up? And why is that the case? And all of those things will change depending on the actual skill that we're trying to implement. But there generally is a best practice way of doing each of those things for each of the skills. And those are all reflected within the LGFA skills cards and the skills videos. Again, for our hands, so what are they doing? Are our hands together? Are they apart? What about the fingers? Are they together? Are they apart? So quite a common thing whenever we're practicing the catch, we'll talk about that W shape and I know whenever Garode's doing the bits on goalkeeping later, we might talk about getting the finger spread as well. Are the arms straight, and why are they straight? And if you see here, our skill here, when we look at our hands, we might look at, right, are the arms straight or are they bent? And you can see there, they're different at different stages. And then for our feet, again, very similar. What do we want our knees, our legs to be doing? How do we want the feet to move? Is there a sequence? What shape is the foot when striking the ball? And which part of the foot do you want to strike the ball with? How far apart do you want your feet to be? And why is that the case? Okay. So again, this is more so for the players on the call, our technical model, this is not something you'll be familiar with. And as a player, you don't want to go into this level of detail when practicing individually, but it can be really, really useful to know the key components that you're looking for in terms of the skill that you're practicing. So if you are practicing, say, for example, the tackle, what do we want our feet to be doing? It can also help you to practice the skill by breaking it down. So if you know what you want your feet to be doing when you're tackling, you can actually just focus on your footwork as opposed to focusing on every aspect of the tackle at one time. And as I said already, the skill cards and the videos are there to support with that. So, Garode, is there anything that you want to come on with there or chip in with just before we move on to some of the key skills?
No, and just as coaches and even as players, we can kind of overcomplicate things a lot. And we can kind of, oh, I need to know this, then this, and this. How we look at it and how we simplify it as coaches, as players, makes it easier for us to add into our sessions, add into our training, and then it's easier then to learn from that. So keep it simple, keep it short, keep it easy to kind of retain that information. And that's where it comes in with the head, hands, feet. It's a nice, easy, simple reference for you to utilize.
Perfect. So, Grode, I think we're sticking with you here. So our first key skill that we're going to look at is kicking. So over to you.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah. And I know such a fundamental skill, and everyone's very familiar in relation to kicking, different forms of kicking. So how we break that down, and even why we do some of the things that we do, so we recognize that as players is very important. So the punt kick, head, eyes are on the ball. So you can see from the image, eyes are firmly on the ball. From the first image to the second, the head is still down. Okay, so you don't lift that head until that ball has been released from your foot. Okay, if you lift it, there could be incorrect connection with that ball in your foot. For the hands, the most important thing, you're dropping it onto the laces. Ideally, you're bringing from two hands to one, dropping it onto the laces into the same hand from the same foot, or from the hand to the same foot. Same hand, same foot, left side, right side. Okay, so what you're doing with your feet, in the meantime, you're stepping forward. Okay, so you're stepping forward with your non-kicking foot. The reason you're stepping forward, you can see the ball as it lands onto your foot, and you're creating that pendulum effect. So the kicking foot is automatically coming from behind you, kicking through the ball, and finishing out. So what we always say, and we start with in relation to the punt kick, you're dropping that ball onto the laces, and you point in the toe in the direction you want it to go. After that, if it's going too high or too low, you can rectify that yourself. So eyeing the ball, hand out, dropping it onto the same foot, stepping forward with the non-kicking foot. Okay. So how can you do this if you're on your own? So one good way of doing it, a fantastic way of doing it, is utilizing a wall if you have it at home or up in your local pitch. Okay, so you can start kicking, okay, off both sides. In the LGFA, we refer to it either dominant, non-dominant side, or left and right. We try not to say strong or weak foot. The reason being, if we say weak foot as coaches, or we have it as weak foot in our heads as players, then we're going to be less likely to practice on that side. Okay, or if you're under pressure, are you going to go to that other side? So the terminology that we use left or right, or dominant, non-dominant. So players aren't as afraid to utilize that in different situations. So you can utilize the wall, and you can use both sides. You can go left and right, okay? From a standing position, just get comfortable, kicking that ball, getting a feel for it, and it's coming back to you. Okay, when you get comfortable, you can increase the distance, and then you can add in some movement. So the movement can be forward and back, it can be lateral movement, all right? And you can then start picking a target on the wall, using both sides, and then you can put a time limit on it if you want. How many passes can you get? And then even can you get how many passes you can get without that ball hitting off the ground? Okay, so there's different things you can increase it to by just utilizing the wall, doing this on your own. Then, if you want to bring it to another level and you're comfortable now with your kicking on your own, you can invite a friend over. Okay, get a teammate, and then both of you can utilize the wall. Okay, so you can have one person kicking off the wall, the other person receiving, vice versa, and the same, you can allow a bounce at the start, but then you can take away the bounce. Okay, so different ways you can progress a basic skill, but something that can be very difficult to work on equally on both sides. Okay, so that's the punt kick. That's a direct, straightforward kick. Okay, what we're going to move on to now is the hook kick, which is usually utilized for scoring opportunities. Okay, so the difference between the punt kick and the hook kick is that that leg finishes across your body. So you're still stepping forward, okay, with your non-kicking foot, as you can see in the second picture here. You're dropping the ball, same hand, same foot, eyes are down onto the ball, and then in the third, you will see that foot has followed through, but this time, instead of going straight up, it's going across the body. So it's finishing across the body. What you want to do when you're shooting, you want to be ideally your shoulder, the shoulder you can see here with the arm straight out, is 90 degrees to the target. Okay? So 90 degrees, and you're hook kicking, and that leg finishes across your body. Okay? The very important thing, especially with the hook kick, and you'll see in the second picture, is the arm. Okay, a lot of people think that arm is, what's that arm there for? Oh, to protection, to fend people off. Primarily that arm, and that the purpose of that arm is counterbalance. It's there so you can manage to get that kick off no matter what level you're at. Okay, if you're leaning to your left, leaning to your right, what pressure you're under, that arm comes out and balances you so you can still get that kick off. Okay, especially when you're trying to utilize a hook kick, okay, that arm becomes very, very important. Okay. So similar to the punt kick, you can utilize the wall, okay? 90 degrees to the target. So you're turning your body when you're kicking, okay? And it's still hitting onto the laces, and then that leg is coming across your body, so it's coming towards the target, okay, in line with your shoulder. Same, working both sides. You can allow one bounce. Then when you're getting better and you progress, no bounce. You can pick a target, make it much harder for yourself, see if you can develop that consistency with the hook kick, and then develop again on the move. I would always build the confidence in the basics and then build on those progressions. You don't have to come in running at targets if you don't have it fully nailed down, doing it standing still or stepping into it. Okay, so once you get to that level, move on to the next level. Okay, that's what progress will look like. Okay, so you're not skipping any steps in that regard. And when you're on your own individual, you have the time to work on those things. Okay, so the shooting part, the fun part. Okay, we know how to use the hook kick, we know how to turn our body 90 degrees, but can we do it in a match situation? So these are just two examples of variances that you can utilize if you're shooting. You can do this on your own, you can do it in pairs or with other teammates. The first, the more direct one, is the straight line running. Okay, you run to the left for the straight line running. Okay, then your body's naturally opening to the left. Okay, so it might be easier than to open your body 90 degrees and shoot for the target. The exact same goes on the right-hand side. Okay, sometimes, and the most, surprisingly enough, in relation to utilizing the hook kick, the most straightforward kick, running direct, can be the most difficult because you're straight onto the goals. Your body needs to either turn left or right in order to hook kick towards that target. So these are good ways of utilizing and getting yourself used to a match situation. So that's the straight line running. We'll go over now to the curved running. So there's some different variances in relation to the curved running. But let's be honest, when you're in a match, you're not always going to be running directly. Your route isn't always direct. Brilliant if it is, but if not, are we training in relation to that? So the curved running, if you look at it here, you could leave on the left, you go to the second cone. See the second cone in the middle, just at the crest of that curve. If you're shooting from there, you're more than likely going to want to open up on the left-hand side. Okay, so you're getting used to that. If you continue your run all the way to the top of the arrow, you're turning back inside again. So now you're realizing, okay, I'm not able to kick off my left side anymore. I need to use the right. So utilizing the curved running technique, okay, you're getting used to soloing on either the left side, the right side, and then finishing with a hook kick on the left, or else if you keep running further, you might have to switch on to the right-hand side. Okay, I think that is pretty much most of what we have in relation to the hook kick. Okay, so it's all about the head, hands, feet. You're dropping that ball. You're not throwing it up. You're hitting the laces with both. Okay, sometimes then as you progress the hook kick, it can come to the inside of the foot, but start with the laces. Eyes are on the ball. They don't lift up until you make contact with that ball. Straight on for the punt kick and then 90 degrees for the hook.
Brilliant, Garrod. Thank you. Just before we move on, I think a couple of points I had nearly noted there as well. With the punt kick against the wall or with the partner, we're also involving the catch there, whether it's the high catch or the body catch. I know we're going to talk about the high catch in a minute, but really important with any of this individual practice that we're doing, being really cognizant of it. It's not just the kicking then that we're practicing, it's the catch. And we tend to maybe forget about that element then as well. So making sure that we have the right technique for that. And with the hook kick, particularly with shooting, there's countless bits and pieces that we can do. If you're down at the pitch with a bag of balls, using the arc of the D, if there is one painted on the pitch, maybe you just, even if you take, say, 6 cones down with you and putting them out at different distances, different trajectory to the goals, different angles, loads of ways that you can practice that as well, and you can evolve both that straight line running and curved running, which as you say, the curved running is probably a bit more applicable for match practice as well, which is brilliant. So we'll just move on now to the hand pass, and with this we have a quick skills video which is going to talk us through the main elements of this.
Waist height. The hand pass. The hand pass is a basic technique to pass the ball over a short distance. Note the position of the head, hands and feet. Let's take a closer look at the key teaching points for the hand pass. Head. Face your teammate and ensure your eyes are on the ball. Hands. Place the ball on your supporting hand about waist height. Use an open hand and strike mostly using the fingertips. Follow through in the direction of the pass. Feet. Take a step forward when striking the ball. Common errors in relation to the hand pass are not hitting the ball with the correct part of the hand. Not hitting the ball with the fingertips can cause the ball to drop short of the partner waiting to receive it. To correct this error, ensure that when striking the ball, mostly the fingertips are used. Another common error is throwing the ball. This happens when there is no defining striking action taken when hand passing the ball to a teammate. To avoid this, ensure to strike the ball well with an open hand. Another mistake occurs when the supporting hand is not steady. This can lead to your opponent easily dispossessing the ball as it is not under complete control. This can lead to misdirection of where the ball should go. It may also lead to difficulty in performing the technique while moving. To avoid this mistake, make sure that the hand supporting the ball is steady and that there is a firm grip on the ball.
Okay, so thanks to our colleague William there, who's described the hand pass brilliantly for us. So there again, you can see the key technical points in terms of the head, hands, and feet. And I think most people, generally would learn the hand pass at quite a young age, but probably some of the best tips, and this is very, very similar to the punt kick, is ultimately utilizing either a partner or against a wall. So if you're on your own, utilizing the wall is a fantastic way to do this. You can set a target amount for passes in the minute. Equally, you can increase or decrease distance, and particularly if we're working on our non-dominant hand, it might be best to start in at a shorter distance. And then if you're practicing against the wall, if you're doing that on a repetitive basis, over the course of, a number of weeks, even just taking 5 minutes out of your day to do this, you can really start to see quick improvements in this area, particularly in relation to your non-dominant hand. Have various targets on the wall or involve movement with a partner. Okay, so and with that partner movement, and you can do this individually as well. So as I mentioned, start to move forward, backward, side to side, increase that movement, increase the distance or decrease the distance. Use multiple balls at one time, okay? And this is something that you probably want to utilize with a partner as opposed to doing it on your own, because it'd be very difficult to catch. But if you are utilizing multiple balls, again, you're practicing that catching, practicing probably that hand-eye coordination as well, because of utilizing two balls at the one time if you're hand passing between two individuals. You can also use different sized balls as well. And this is something, that people might be familiar with from coaching courses if you are a coach on the call. And again, this can be done for the solo. It can be done for the kick pass as well. But if you're able, generally the rule of thumb will be if you're able to hand pass, or if you're able to work with a smaller ball, such as a tennis ball, you'll generally be able to work with a bigger ball then as well. Okay. And as we say, ensure that you use both hands. That is absolutely critical, particularly when we're going back onto the field to play. All right, so Gro, just before I think we move over again, is there anything that you want to come in with there? Anything else that you've seen in relation to the hand pass that would be useful?
Not in relation to hand pass, I think you've covered everything. But yeah, I'm absolutely with the both sides. Don't be afraid to go for the both sides. And you as a coach, if you are the coach, create that atmosphere where it's okay. Okay, so it's okay to work off both sides. It's okay if it's not yet as strong as the perceived stronger side. It's very, very important because you want your players comfortable and going after both sides. It is okay, and coaches approach it differently, that let's develop one side first and then build in the other side, that's okay. That varies from coach to coach, and that also depends on the player.
Perfect. So onto soloing and back to yourself, I think, for this one.
Yeah, perfect. And kind of teed up in relation to the punt kick anyway. So very, very similar kind of movements in relation to the solo. So eyes are on the ball, dropping the ball to the laces, toe stepping forward with a non-kicking foot, and toe flicks up towards you. This is kind of a pet peeve of mine. I go to so many coaching courses, and then when I say, okay, what's the toe doing? And everyone, 99% does say pointing up. Okay, that's rigid. What the actual action of that toe, that's flicking up towards you. So if you use those exact words, it's easier then to pass that on, or easier to understand as a player if you are coaching that player. So that toe is flicking up towards you. And that is something that especially younger players have to build confidence in relation to doing as well. Is flicking that ball towards them when it's coming back to them. So eyes on the ball, okay? But when that ball comes into your hand, you want to eyes up. So when you say eyes on the ball, make sure their head is still coming up every time that ball comes into their hand. Replicating a game, eyes are up so they're aware of their surroundings. Okay, if you develop the bad habits, then that head stays down and it's not automatic up every time, and you're getting tackled, different things like that. Okay, so when you're coaching or when you're practicing, eyes up after you when you put that ball into your hand. So dropping down to the laces, stepping forward with a non-kicking foot again, okay? So it allows you to see everything. And when we're stepping forward, instead of standing still, any player can stand still, practice it if they wish. But why we're stepping forward straight away is you're getting them to replicate what they will be doing in a match. Stepping forward with the left, stepping forward with the right, okay? So how we can practice this, there's a number of different ways we can go after it. A fun way that I love, and you'll see videos of this on, you can see them on our YouTube channel, and some of the challenges that are actually done during COVID is the 2-ball method. You could have a ball, one in each hand, okay? So you're not crossing over. What you're going to do, you're going to drop the ball from your left, solo kick back up to your left hand, drop the ball to your right. Left and right, constant. Okay, what you can do with that, then you can have games. You can put a time limit. How many can you get in a certain amount of time? Left and right, left and right. Imagine given a minute on both sides, the amount of touches you're going to get with the ball. And after a few minutes, after a half an hour of practicing things like that, you won't realize the progression that you will be able to achieve. Okay, so that's one fun way of doing it. And if you're doing the 2-ball method, you don't need to just be standing in one place. You can use cones, you can use obstacles. You can go turn left, turn right, okay? All while balancing, juggling cones, going the balls left and right. The single ball method, okay, can just be used. Throw away one ball, you're using your left, you're using your right, okay? One way we can do this, and one I really enjoy, is one I'll actually show you in this video now. So you'll just see a quick different demonstration from Jennifer Higgins in relation to soloing and changing direction while you're soloing.
Hi, this week's skills challenge is the Slalom Goal Challenge. This works on agility, balance, coordination, soloing and bounce, and finally kicking a goal. Well, it's not as easy as it looks. It took me a few goes, but it works on agility, balance, coordination. Now it's your turn. Let's see if you can do better.
Okay, so that's something you can do at home on your own, okay, or up on the pitch on your own, okay, and you can make that harder or easier. You can go further out, and I love the fact that you add in that score, is that card at the end of it, okay, and it's game-based. If you're a forward and you're learning how to solo, you're going left and right, it's not as in job done. Okay, so you add that goal in at the end, so you're finishing everything that you're doing within a game as well. Very important when you're running left and right, okay, and I know there's crossing over in that regard, we were only working one side, Okay, but if you're turning left, or if you're going around the cone on your left and you're doing a sharp turn to your right, then you will have that ball ideally in your outside hand. It's the same as if you're approaching a player and they're on your right hand side, you want that ball in your left hand side. Okay, so you're avoiding the player with the ball. Okay, you're keeping it away. If we use one side, it doesn't matter then if that player, if that defender or someone comes, opposition comes in against you, you're not able to move it to the other side and you can't freely free up the leg on the other side. Okay, so that's why using both sides and practicing both sides extremely important, but understanding when you're to utilize that in a match is also good. So putting out the cones or the poles like you saw in that video, turning left, turning right, and also always keeping that ball and soloing on the outside foot. Okay, so keeping the ball away. A lot of people are wondering why you do left side, right side when, oh, I'm very strong on this side. I can use my left hand and bring it back to the right. The reason being, okay, and you'll see all Ireland winners, you'll see a load of them crossing over. They cross over and they keep their hand away to fend off players. That's totally fine. But those same players has developed both sides equally. So if a defender or an opposition player forces me to the left, I can equally use same hand, same foot on my left, going to the right, same hand, same foot on the right. It makes you a more dynamic player and you can get out of more and solve more situations than in the middle of a game. So that's pretty much it. I think the most important thing is flicking of the toe and the confidence in doing so, bring it backwards, eyes up, and then keeping that ball on the outside.
Brilliant. So I think
Challenge.
we are going to move on to the tackle now. So again, our key focuses for the tackle with our head, again, eyes on the ball, and this is really, really important, okay? Particularly if you're practicing the tackle with another person, okay? The person may change in terms of where their body is going, where they're showing their body might be going. But if you focus on the ball, that is the easiest way then to attempt to dispossess your opponent, all right? So eyes on the ball, use the near hand to flick the ball away. And the reason that we say that is that there can be a tendency then, if you tend to use the far hand, what happens within a game situation, the near hand can tend to go onto the back of the player or onto the other player, creating a foul. The feet, you want to move your nearest leg across to the opponent's space in order to get close to the ball. Okay, and that again is really, really important. So as we can see on the screen on the right hand side from the skills card, if we imagine that there's another player there that has the ball, this player here will have kind of moved across with their right foot into their space, okay? And additionally with the feet, you know, the ability to move your feet quickly side to side, forwards and backwards, as we're potentially standing up, as so to speak, a forward can be particularly useful, okay? So the tackle, you know, can be probably, I think it's fair to say, a bit of a harder skill to practice, particularly on your own or in pairs once we're away. And often can be even a hard skill to practice and train. And it's something that can be shied away from a little bit when we compare to, you know, things such as kicking or hand passing or soloing. But in terms of how to practice this skill, maybe on your own, and this is where we go to the head, hands, feet part in terms of breaking this component skill down, okay? So it can be really useful for the tackle in terms of breaking the skill down and practicing the individual pieces on their own. So for example, the foot movement can be practiced through agility-based drills. So if we look here on the left-hand side, you know, what you might want to do is set out a cross shape of cones. So one cone in the middle, and then you have your other four cones around in a square or a diamond, okay? If you have another individual there, so say for example, if myself and Garode were down at the pitch, I can maybe start at cone 1, and then Garode could shout, right, go 2 to 5, or he could shout, right, go from 2 to 1 to 5, back to 1 to 4, back to 1. All right. So there's lots of ways in terms of how you can advance that. If you're on your own, you obviously just send out different individual movements, okay? But if we start at 1, you know, you'd imagine that you start with a run out, a forward run out towards 2, and then maybe backwards towards 1. Then you're on your right hand side going shuffling towards the right, again practicing that foot movement, that agility base drill. Go out to 5, that's practicing towards the left, and with 4 we're obviously practicing that forward and backwards movement again. Okay, with this as well, if you imagine, if you put each of the cones probably about 4 steps away from the middle cone, you can then integrate the high hand movement and the timing of that. Okay, so if you imagine we go out towards 5, that's when you practice the near hand movement. Okay, so go out, left shuffle out towards cone 5, and then we say, right, actually what we're going to do then, we're going to practice that left hand near hand tackle. You can do that then equally right hand out towards 3, and vice versa then for 2 and 4 as well. Okay, if you're working alongside a partner, you can simplify this a bit, and you can have a partner soloing alongside you. Initially, you mightn't even involve a ball, just be running alongside the partner, shouting 1, 2, 3, 4, and then practice the reach across with the hand and also with the foot movement. Okay, and as said, the hand movement can be timed into these drills in particular as well. Okay, and we'll give you some, I suppose, resources at the end in terms of, there's lots of practice drills out there, lots of bits and pieces, whether it's on Tubber, whether it's on the LGFA website, in terms of where you can find some of those practice drills as well. Okay, so lots of resources out there in relation to that. Gerard, I think we're going to go on to goalkeeping next, but anything, any other tips there in relation to the tackle before we move on?
No, just emphasizing the 4. The 4 steps, because if you're a defender or an opposition and you want to dispossess that ball, understanding the rules, that's coming out every 4 steps. So the counting in your head, that 4, if that ball doesn't come out, that's going to be free for you anyway. So massive to integrate the rules as well into some of your sessions.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so we will move on to the goalkeeping. So in relation, and just to give you a taster in relation to goalkeeping, because it can be quite a niche area and kind of difficult for certain coaches to coach the basics of coaching if you haven't experienced goalkeeping yourself in the past. So we said we'll go through a few different areas of goalkeeping and break them down for you. So the first, and basically in relation to safety, is diving. Okay, so a lot of people are afraid to kind of tackle how a dive should occur, but it's the first thing every referee should learn, okay, from a young age all the way up, how to dive correctly so you're safe and you feel confident then when you're diving. Okay, so the rule and the breakdown is knee, hip, shoulder. So you want the knee to hit on the side, then your hip to follow, and then your shoulder naturally. You don't want to skip from knee to shoulder, okay? Because your shoulder will bounce off the ground. So what you're getting, you're bending, contorting your body, knee, hip, shoulder, and you're hitting onto the ground. That's the safest way of falling. So when you're coaching this, and even advanced goalkeepers do this, they still break it down just to practice, so it's in their mind. They know exactly what to do, and automatically when they go out to a game. Okay, so knee, hip, shoulder. You can start on the knees. If you're practicing this for the very first time, start on the knees. Fall to the left, fall to the right. Just get comfortable doing it. Okay, you can keep your hands underneath you at the start, but then start reaching out and making sure that hip, that shoulder is following then consecutively. So knee, hip, shoulder. And then when you're practicing that, you can stay on your knees. You can introduce the ball. The ball comes into the left, the ball comes into the right. Okay? Then you progress it from the knees onto the feet, and you're doing the same thing, but you're going knee, hip, shoulder. Okay? And then you can test the goalkeeper. They can turn your back. You can make a call. They see wherever the ball is coming, left or right, and they have to react quickly. And then other than that, you can come in from different angles, okay, from the left, from the right, straight on, and you're not telling them or giving them an idea of where you're going to be shooting, and they have to react accordingly. but very, very important, especially with young players, that they learn the correct way of diving, okay? Because it's safe, and we know it's hard always to get goalkeepers goalkeeping, okay, in a lot of circumstances. So introducing them in a safe way to goalkeeping and diving is very, very important. Okay, a different aspect that we're going to look at is footwork. So very similar now to what Eilish has just covered in relation to the tackle. Footwork is very, very important. Okay, so as a goalkeeper, footwork and basically your awareness is very, very important. So just for an example, and you don't need to have goals, you can do this out in the middle of pitch or any bit of grass or wherever you have. But you're looking at two different types of movement. You're going traverse, left and right, that's going covering your goals. And then multi-directional, you're coming out and back. Okay, so if a forward is coming in, you want to get out towards that forward. Okay, so you're practicing straight line running, different directions, left, right, and working across your goals. The biggest thing, and we're talking about you aware of your surroundings, eyes up. How can you do all these things? How can you make all these movements? You're not to be looking at the cone, staring at the cone. You're not to be looking at the ground because I'm running in that direction. You need your eyes up as a goalkeeper. So when you are practicing this, eyes are up, you're moving left and right. Can you move across? You know exactly where you are. You have your aware of your surroundings. Can you move in those different directions and your eyes are still up because you want to focus on the forward, on that ball coming in. Okay? The one thing to look for, and this happens when you're learning for the first time, crossing over. Okay, if you cross over your legs, you're more prone to falling over, okay? And especially in moments that you don't want to as a goalkeeper. So make sure there's no crossing over your legs. You're going side to side, forward, back, and no crossing over. Okay, next one then. We're going to look at reflexes. I just added this in. This is a nice, fun, quick idea that you can do with two people and utilizing two balls. That's all you need. Okay, so just have a quick look at this.
This drill, purely about reactions. Imagine the goalkeeper's one-on-one and it's a point-blank save. You're not going to have an opportunity to get two hands to the ball. But let's stop the ball getting into the back of the net. Get a reflex. I want to check her reflexes, okay?
I love this example because it's simple. Okay, two balls, you can throw them up, you can throw them like you saw in that video at the person, but you're going left, right. It's a small area. Okay, your head is forward as a goalkeeper, and you have to react instantaneously. You don't necessarily, you can progress it to reaching out a small bit further than you saw in that video, but you're keeping it left, right, bottom left, bottom right, and you're testing them and you're not telling them where it's coming. Okay, so if a goalkeeper gets comfortable doing something as small as that, that will really benefit them when they're in those close quarters, in the dying moments of a game, and they need to make a vital save and there's very little space available. Okay, so practicing in that way helps you for those game situations. Now, the last thing that we're going to look at in relation to goalkeeping, it's pretty much joining those things together. What do they all mean then when you're in the middle of a game? Okay, and we're looking at kind of closing down the space. Okay, so you may have, and this is how you can set up, you can have 3 cones, you can have players coming in from different angles, or one player outside changing their positions, but they're running in. What you're trying to do, your objective as a goalkeeper, is to come out. So you're number 1 here in that slide. And when you get out to that ball, and if there's no other defenders, you must go, you're trying to close off that angle. Okay, so you're trying to protect your close side, close off as much of the goals. So now you've limited, see the green, that's the only area available to that forward. Okay, so your job is done. Usually when that happens, a defender is there across that area, covering that area anyway. Okay, so you're trying to close down, and like the tackle, you're trying to get those hands straight onto the ball. Okay, if you can't get out in time, you're the only person between that forward and the goals. You're trying to close down that angle, and what you're trying to do, you're trying to force that player. Okay, force that player to where you don't want them to go. So if they're coming in on their left-hand side, you want to force them, put pressure on the left, and force them to the outside. Okay, so you want them to make a decision to what they're not trying to do. If I'm coming in, I'm trying to kick it on my left boot, and the pressure, goalkeeper is coming out, putting pressure on my left side, then I'm forced to go onto my right, my non-dominant side. That gives me a better chance as a goalkeeper. So these are a lot of things I know all together that goalkeepers must think of, where you're putting in the different directions of running. Okay, your eyes are on the ball, you're closing down that, and you're utilizing your hands and your reactions in those moments. So you can start off very simply, okay, and then you can start bringing people in from different angles. But important for young players to know when they're closing down, why they're closing down that player and what they're trying to achieve. Okay, so it's great going, run out to the ball, why aren't you closing down, why aren't you coming out? Okay, create that scenario, okay, and then get that goalkeeper to come up with the answers in those scenarios and change them up, challenge your goalkeepers. But that's a more advanced version and joining everything that we've just gone through together. Eilish, is there anything else you'd like to add in relation to that? Because I know there's a lot of different motions that it's probably hard to find if it wasn't a video or something like that.
No, I don't think so. I think the reason we wanted to highlight the goalkeeping in particular is probably because it's nearly the forgotten area in relation to whether it's practicing individually or if it is coaching. So we thought it was good to bring that in. And equally, for maybe the outfield players, it's sometimes useful to be aware of this, as you said, if you're a defender, the covering angles, equally, as a forward, it can be useful to know that to gain an advantage whenever you are maybe on the pitch. So our last area then that we are going to focus on is the high catch. So we just play this video here.
The overhead catch. This catch is used to catch a ball which comes at full reach height or over the player's head. Note the position of the head, hands and feet. Let's give a closer look at the teaching points in relation to the overhead catch. Head. Keep rising the ball, and as the ball reaches its highest point, assess where the ball is going to land. Feet. Approach the ball and move forward. Plant a jumping foot and extend upwards, raising the other knee forward. Hands. Extend arms above the head, keep head up and eyes on the ball. Reach to catch the ball at the highest point with fingers spread wide apart and thumbs behind the ball in a W shape. Catch the ball slightly in front of the head and bring it down quickly. Cushion the ball and secure it into the chest with both hands. Common errors associated with the over.
So we'll just leave that there because we've kind of gone through the main points. But in terms of the high catch, again, we can build up the key components of this when we are practicing. So look at our hand position, the jump. We can also move this into existing drills, and we'll give you a really good example of this in terms of maybe an obstacle course. As I mentioned before, this plays in really nicely if we're practicing either kicking or the hand pass in particular. And equally, we can break down some of those individual components. So if we're looking to practice our jump and our bound, maybe our hopping, we can practice those with equipment such as mini hurdles, ladders. If you don't have those things, that's absolutely fine. You can use cones if they're not available and just space those out appropriately. If you don't have cones, you can use literally anything, a jumper, a water bottle. And again, this can be either practice against the wall if you want, or with a partner. And I thought this, I suppose this clip from the player development program is a really nice way of doing this in terms of, and we'll just play the first minute of this, in terms of engaging this and integrating it with a movement drill.
in every player development program, we advocate that you have a movement station. The reason why we advocate that is because if players can move well, have good athletic form, then they can execute the skills a lot better. So the activities we're going to show you now include how to react better, how to accelerate, how to decelerate, how to run, how to change direction. So give a look at the activities and see what you think. I want you to run as fast as you can, right bounce, stop with your left leg, back, okay? You're going to throw the ball to me, throw the ball, yeah? Body catch, and off you go back, Okay, let's go practice. Stop with your left leg, back as fast as you can, go, come on, really fast, and back we go. Next time you're going, you're stopping with the right leg. So it's very important, really good.
So we'll just pause that video there because obviously that video, whilst it's giving us an example of the body catch, that can easily be changed to practice the high catch. Equally, you can practice the body catch with that. But if you have, maybe you can do that with a group 2, 3, anything up from that, you'll be able to do that. Equally, if you don't have those people and you are practicing on your own, again, use the wall, just put the cones out, put 2 cones out, maybe say 15, 20 meters away from the wall, a space of 5 meters between them, practice that in and out running, and then throw the ball up for yourself off the wall. And that's easily practiced there. Okay. So that gives us, we have a few minutes left on the session here tonight. So I think we've done, we've gone through quite a lot of the key skills there. We focused on maybe some of the more popular or favorite ones at the start, but then started to take in maybe some of the less practiced or less thought of skills at times, and how you can start to implement those into your individual training and focus on those individual skills and hone those, whether it's in pre-season, off-season, or indeed in the midst of the season as well. So in terms of some practical tips, as we've mentioned already, the LGFA skills cards and videos are there to help you focus on the correct technique. And if you go onto the LGFA website, the LGFA YouTube, there's loads of examples like the clips that we've shown you here tonight in terms of, and there's even more there as well in terms of drills and different ideas that you can get in terms of how to practice these. As I mentioned at the start, there can be a tendency, if we have time to focus on individual bits and pieces, that can tend to be eaten up by whether it's fitness or strength and conditioning. But actually, if we set some specific time throughout the week to practice our skills, either as a one-off or actually just bolted on to the end of the session, if you're already down at the pitch for collective practice, can you come down 15 minutes earlier, do a little bit of individual work, or stay for an extra 15 minutes? Set targets and goals for skill development, okay? And skills challenge cards, particularly for underage players, can be really useful for doing this, okay? So as you can see there from the example on the right-hand side, there's certain things that, the pickup gives us 1 point. If we solo with our left leg or right leg, that's 3. And working up maybe to more complex skills, such as a hook kick over the bar with our left leg or a right leg. What you can do as well to encourage people and encourage yourself to use your non-dominant foot is actually give your non-dominant side maybe a higher score. So then, if you're achieving that, that will obviously encourage you to do that. As we mentioned, involve your friends, play music. This isn't designed to be anything too formal. So make it social and make it fun. And there's also the Be Ready to Play resources, which are available on the Tubber, which is the GAA's learning platform. And there's loads of other resources there that are available to help people grow. Just before I go on to the stepper model, is there anything else in terms of practical tips that you think would be useful for people to be aware of, or any useful resources on your end?
I think you'll see other videos like you've mentioned now, like the Gaelic for Teens videos. They're all available on the LGFA YouTube channel, and you'll also see workshops upcoming more specific into each of those skills as well, if there are any areas that after tonight you want to explore or go into more. So absolutely. And in relation to the skills challenge here in the chart, like, you don't need to do that even as a coach. You can do that, brilliant. You can do it different stages throughout the year, but you can get getting players to self-reflect on the skills and their progress in the off season can also be utilized as well.
Brilliant. And the last thing that we just want to mention is the stepper principle. And this is probably, again, coaches will likely be aware of this, but for players, this is something that may be a little bit new or different. So for any of the activities that we've mentioned, any of the drills, any of the bits and pieces that you can actually use to practice this, the stepper principle is a way of, I suppose, progressing and regressing any of the drills or exercises as you need and changing them so that you can keep things fresh. So the S in stepper stands for space. So where's the activity happening? Can you increase or decrease the area in which the task is being performed? Okay. So a good example with that would be when we talk at the start around the target for kicking or the target for maybe hand passing. If you want to increase the target, that would make it easier for the task to be performed. But actually, if you decrease the target, that might make it more difficult for the task to be performed. So our time, how long are we working for? Again, if we're setting ourselves targets, if you want to make things short and intensive, obviously shorten the time. If you want to give yourself a bit more time, to be relaxed, lengthen that. Equipment, what's being used. So as I mentioned, a good way of doing this is using the tennis ball. That's a prime way of, again, modifying the equipment. And I suppose the target would be a good example, sorry, of that one as well. Our players, who's involved, can you do that in pairs, individually, and then rules as well. So rules don't just have to be attached to condition games or games within training. We can create little rules for ourselves. And the skills challenge card there on the previous page would be a good example of that. As I said, maybe changing the points that are awarded for our non-dominant foot or non-dominant hand to be increased so that it encourages us to use that a little bit more. Guys, I'm very conscious that we have probably talked there. We have whistled through a lot of stuff over the last hour, but hopefully that has given everybody a little bit of an insight and an indication into how we can hone some of those individual skills, looking at the key aspects of head, hands, feet, our approaches to play, the various different skills, the 6 key ones that we focused on, and some practical tips in order to implement that, and just running quickly through the stepper model. So I am going to stop the recording there shortly, but if anybody has any questions, we would love for you guys to come in.